Hello, welcome to the Clash of the Rams, the sports show, new at Suffolk University. It's a sports show where we debate and talk about different topics. Before we get to the actual show, let me talk about Suffolk University sports. Right now, men's basketball has lost 2 games in a row and now have slid under 500 for the record. For men's hockey, they started out 2-0, but they just lost their previous game, which makes it 7 in a row for a 7-game losing streak, which leaves them at 2-7 now. Let's go on with the show. I'll introduce you to my sports reporters. To my far left, this is Ryan Chevy Chevalier.
Our first show, but not our last.
Next to me, I got Chris Bicadonna. Over here, I got Ever Hernandez. And to my far right is Eric Russo. Alright, so let's get started with the show. Let's go to our top story. Our top story, the Packers, they just won their 12th game. They're 12-0, perfect. Will they go on to the perfect season, and can anybody beat them? Ryan?
Well, you saw them last night, and they beat the Giants, and Aaron Rodgers looked really good on that final drive. I don't know if any defense can stop Aaron Rodgers right now. They might go undefeated. The Lions are the final game they're going to play, and that might be the challenge for them. But they have Oakland, the Chiefs, and then the Bears, and that should all be wins.
Okay, Chris?
Well, I think you have a team here who, interestingly enough, they're a Packer team not really made for Lambeau Field. They're more of a passing-oriented team. Can they be beaten? I think they can. I don't think they will be beaten in the regular season. I think they'll probably complete the Patriot season, the 16-0. Whether or not they win the Super Bowl, it almost feels very eerily similar to that season in the way the games are starting to get tougher for them down the stretch. They're getting closer and closer and closer. The pressure will eventually mount. And I can see a team like the Giants, if they make it, or New Orleans, or especially San Francisco, going into Lambeau Field and winning in the playoffs. So I think they'll complete the 16-0. Are they as good as the 07 Patriots? No. And I think they'll ultimately suffer the same fate.
Ever?
The Packers will go 16-0.
Oh, really? So you disagree with Chris?
The Packers.
I think the Packers will go 16-0.
But
I think they ultimately will suffer the same fate.
You think they're winning the Super Bowl, though?
No.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know about that. That's any team in the playoffs can win the Super Bowl.
So you're in agreement that they're going 16-0?
Yeah, I think unfortunately,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I think they
Any
will.
thoughts on it? Like, in the playoffs, do you think there's going to be a team that can beat them?
Maybe the Pats.
So they'll most likely make it to the Super Bowl, we think?
Yeah, the Packers will most likely make it to the Super Bowl. The Pats will be probably their biggest challenger.
So yeah, I better see they're gonna face a team like the Saints in the playoffs. I mean that offense can go toe to, and the Packers defense is just as miserable as the Patriots defense. I think the Saints can tear them up.
Well, they played on opening day, the Saints and Packers, and they pulled away a 3-point win.
Yeah, the Pats played the Giants in the perfect season. They beat them by 3 points, and ultimately ended up losing to them again in the playoffs. I feel like the pressure is too much. I almost feel like it's ridiculous to lose on purpose, clearly, but I feel like the pressure is just. I see them suffering the same fate. I think there's too many teams that can beat them. If you can get a pass rush on Aaron Rodgers, he's not going to score every time down the field. He's great, but if you can produce a pass rush, I think they're beatable.
What do you think, Eric?
Well, the big thing with them is, obviously they can go undefeated, but will they go for it in the final game, or will they pull Colts and say, we're going to rest our starters and not go for the 16-0? So I think that's the big question with them.
I think they're a more legitimate franchise than the wussies in Indianapolis. The polling crew. I think they'll definitely go for it. I mean, I think they should go for it. The integrity of the game. And I think they'll ultimately accomplish it. I think the Colts. Now that I think back, and I wish the Colts went for it that year, because it would have been nice to see them losing the Super Bowl same way we did. But I think they have a lot more integrity and character than those clowns in Indianapolis. So I think they'll definitely go for it.
And look at the criticism that the Colts took when they did pull their quarterback that year. There's no way that a team wants to go through that again. They've learned from it.
We got to move on to our next topic. So we're going to go on to the NBA lockout, finally over.
Woo.
Thank goodness, I know. We're going to have a good Christmas present with NBA basketball. So, any thoughts on this upcoming very short and somewhat rushed season?
Well, I think the NBA. I think they didn't solve their ultimate problem, which is competitive balance. And so, I mean, the NBA has been exciting to me personally for the past few years because the Celtics have been one of those few teams that have a shot to win. But
because, like you said earlier, only a certain number of teams have a shot.
Only a certain number of teams have a shot to win a title. Now that I don't think the Celtics are necessarily in that crew, not that terribly excited for it. I do like the shorter season because the NBA season is too long to begin with, and I do like the compact schedule. And I think.
So who's in contention then?
I think you got teams that you have a shot. I think you got Miami. I think
Lakers.
They're the favorites. I think the Lakers.
Bulls.
God forbid they win. The Bulls in Oklahoma City. I think you can include Dallas in there. Just you have to because they're the defending champs.
It's got to include defending champs.
But I don't. I think it's really a 3 or 4 team race. And I see Miami as an overwhelming favorite. To be honest with you, this year.
I see Miami as an overwhelming favorite as well. They're going to step it up after their huge loss last year. So
they'll have a bench now.
Yeah, they will have a bench.
But with an NBA lockout, we really don't know what's to come. All right, let's move on to our next topic. Our next topic, big headliner in Boston, Bobby V has landed. So what are your thoughts on our new Red Sox manager? Are we happy about it? Are we sad? What do you think?
Well, I think it's an obvious move. They had to bring in someone who has experience, knowledge, is going to lay down the law. I mean, we saw last year the players run over Terry Francona, who was there for 8 years. So bringing in a guy like Torey Lovullo or those guys they were talking about who have no experience, I mean, who's to say that the team wouldn't lay back again like they did last year? So I think it's a great move to bring someone in who's going to, he's not going to flip tables over and scream, but he's a guy that has a presence about him who's gonna lay down the law.
His MO is kind of like that, where he flips tables. So
right.
But hopefully we get a better manager than that.
I mean, I don't think I'm breaking any news here, but I mean this has the potential to both sink and swim. There's no in between with this move. This is a risky move, and I think they needed a disciplinarian because the players in the clubhouse were just absolutely out of control and embarrassed us all in September. But I think he's too much of a sideshow, and I think he's, it's a reasonable question. Did the management not just go for a good manager, but they go for someone who is marketable, which is not really where their ultimate focus should be.
Anything you have to add, Ryan?
I just want to mention they're taking the right first steps, though. He went down to see Ortiz down in Dominican Republic. He's trying to get the guys re-signed to try to build a championship team again, and the energy's back in Boston here.
Good. It's good to have that too for the Red Sox. All right, our last topic we're going to talk about is the BCS. We finally have our 2 contenders who are going to play. It is LSU, Alabama. I honestly, I think I wouldn't have liked to see a repeat like this. I would have rather liked to see Oklahoma State in there, see something fresh, more of a, no prediction would be obvious type of game, and I think that's what we would have got with one of the best offense against one of the best defenses. But I mean, if they wanted to go with the same matchup.
So yeah, I contradict that. I think the BCS is a little bogus, but I do think LSU and Alabama are probably the 2 best teams in the country. It's just the notion of having 2 teams from the same conference playing each other. I don't think it's necessarily fair. They've already played each other. If you ask me what's the best game, yeah, I guess the BCS did its job. It's going to be Alabama, LSU. What if Bama wins? So how does LSU look at themselves in the mirror not winning a national title, even though they already beat them? I just think the whole system is bogus. It's a little corrupt, and it's going to produce a good game,
we should have a
champion.
But
I mean, it's just beyond common sense to have the playoffs.
So what would you do to? Oh yeah, playoffs.
Well, I think what you do. I think very simple. I think you keep the rankings in the formula. I think you take probably the top 8. Probably 6 of them have to be conference champions, 2 at large. I think you have a playoff, and I think you send all the other teams to bowls. Yeah, will the Rose Bowl have teams that aren't less as appealing? Yeah, the Fiesta, the Gator, the Cotton, all that. Yeah, but ultimately it produces a better champion, and that's supposed to be. I mean, this isn't.
Ryan has a good name for the BCS.
Right.
Oh
This
yeah,
isn't.
I like to call it the Super Bowl or Super. I forget what
Oh,
I
the
used to
bull. What do you call it? The bull crap
call it.
Super
Bull
Bowl.
crap Super Bowl.
Yeah.
That's what I used to.
All right, we're gonna move on from that, from our ridiculous puns. All right, we're gonna actually go on to our next segment, which is called Game Time. Today's game, we're gonna pick a name out of this hat, and we're gonna talk about the name that's on the hat, in the hat. So let's all go around, and we'll all talk about for about 30 seconds. All right, Eric, why don't you start us off?
My name is David Krejci. He's in the news. He recently signed a 3-year, $15.75 million contract. A good move for the Bruins. He's a solid two-way player, good defensively, good with face-offs. The one thing with him, though, inconsistent a little bit in the regular season, but come playoff time, big games, he's your guy. So that's the big thing with this move. Clutch player, your number one center, best passer, and best performer in the playoffs, led the whole NHL in scoring last year in the playoffs. So,
Ever?
Tim Tebow has been 6-1 since taking over as the starting quarterback for the Denver Broncos. Now, the big debate is whether Tebow is a legitimate quarterback. I believe he is not, but he is producing the wins. Now, does the win matter over the mechanics of Tebow? That's the big question. But yeah.
Okay, my name was Andrew Luck, and Andrew Luck right now is up for the Heisman Trophy. I don't want to talk about that, though. The reason I'm talking about Andrew Luck is because I want to focus more on his pro subject, where people are using the term suck for luck. But I think the real question is, what if luck sucks? Because if Andrew Luck ends up just being another quarterback, we're talking about 2 years that we've hyped this kid. If he's only an average quarterback, why are we having teams that are throwing games? I just think it's ridiculous. Chris, what's your name?
I got Urban Meyer, the next head football coach at the Ohio State University. I think this is a huge step for a program that has fallen on rough times in the past year. But it's interesting to see what this will mean for the Buckeyes, because this is the biggest catch they've had. This is probably Woody Hayes, their all-time best coach. I think on one hand it means that the NCAA probably isn't going to level sanctions on them, or else Urban wouldn't have taken the job. I think he opens up a lot of recruiting ties in the Southeast, which is big, because Ohio State has struggled to get some of the better athletes from the Floridas, the Georgias, the Alabamas, the Oklahomas. And I think it means Ohio State can compete for a national title right away next year. Hopefully, if you're a Buckeye fan, you hope he's taking over the play calling, as the Buckeyes have one of the most brutal offensive coordinators I've ever watched in the history of football. He's a good coach. He's a big name, and he's a big catch for Ohio State. And I think ultimately you'll see them winning the Big Ten next year, right off the bat.
Wow. Okay. Ryan, what was your name?
My player's name was Jose Reyes, and Jose, he signed a $106 million 6-year deal with the Miami Marlins, changed from the Florida Marlins, and it's the talk of the town right now. Miami, they brought in LeBron and all of them, and they're just making all this hype even now with baseball, and they're the team to beat when it comes baseball season.
Yeah. Okay. Especially if they get Albert Pujols, right?
Especially if
they're
they
gonna
get
be a
Pujols.
team to reckon with. All right, that's the end of game time. We're gonna move on to our next segment, which we are getting in reports from our up to the minute reporter Brandon Crosby. Things that we couldn't put on the show or just happen. Tiger Woods, he won his first golf tournament in 2 years after all the problems he's had. Vince Carter might get released by the Suns. That's a rumor. That's not actual fact yet. But yeah, that's all from Brandon Crosby, the sports editor for the Suffolk Voice. So,
Now we will move on to our next segment, which is Clash of the Rams. In this segment, we will have Chris and Jeremy debate about whether the Miami Heat will win a championship this year. The prize is you get a 60-minute Ram rant, which you get to talk about anything you want. So, fellas, take it away.
You want me to go first?
You go ahead and lead the way.
Okay, so my point of view. Heat, 3 years. I don't think they can do it in 3 years. I just don't think they're ready. I don't think they're fit to win a championship.
I think that is absolutely, utterly ridiculous. I'm not exactly a Heat fan, I'm a Celtic fan, but I don't join the Heat hating bandwagon that everyone seemed to jump on. I think you have 2 out of the 3 best players. You can actually say now probably the 2 best players in the league.
Yeah.
Okay. You have, their coach is a little bit of a softie, but now they can have a bench. Could you name someone from their bench last year?
Can you tell me some of their players from their bench?
That's exactly the point. I couldn't name their bench.
So you think they're going to get a bench?
That's because last year they didn't have now they have the middle level exception. They're gonna have a lot more room in free agency to pick up players, have some sort of bench, so it won't be all on the big 3. And I just don't understand how you. They were 2 games away, one choke away from leading 3-2 in the series. I don't understand how you don't think a team like that in a sport.
How can you say that they're going to win when it's the big 3? Last year, it's all the hype. These 3 guys, they're going to win not 5, not 6, not 7. They're going to win a bunch of championships. But we're talking about releasing one of the big 3 already because now they're already.
But who's talking about that? That's kind of off the path. That's all speculation. That's not fact. But the point I'm trying to make is that they're not ready. They're not a team yet.
They're
not. But who determines whether or not they're ready?
By them not winning a championship last year.
Well, we're talking about the next 3 years. There is. You're hoping. You're wishing.
And
they're gonna win a championship.
You're using the last year them losing a championship. Guess what? The Cleveland Cavaliers in 2007 lost the championship. Guess how many they were gonna win in the next 3 years? 2 out of 3 with LeBron James. Look at them now. He's not even on the team.
You're absolutely ridiculous if you're comparing the 2. That's apples to oranges. You have. Bosh is a softie,
but
he's
you
still
said
a
it
good
yourself
center.
that
You
they're
have LeBron.
breaking apart the team. The bench is totally gone. They're probably getting rid of the bench.
The bench was awful. The bench was the best bunch of castaways.
So why are they going to be good next year?
Because the rules work out when they have more room in free agency to acquire a bench this year because of the mid-level exception and so forth. They're going to have a bench, another year under their belt. You're wishing.
And
you're hoping.
Karl Malone and Stockton. 2 of the best players at their time. But I'm just using it as an example.
Because they were going against Michael Jordan
Exactly.
and Scottie Pippen. Ooh, did you see a Michael Jordan Scottie Pippen out there?
Kobe Bryant's still in the league. The Celtics still have a little more left.
Okay.
This is absolutely absurd. I don't understand.
Time!
You're wishing.
Time! And we have decided it is Chris that wins.
Well, I would hope so. Utterly ridiculous. Oh, okay. You got my 60 seconds?
60 seconds.
The Red Sox front office, the most inconsistent. I don't want to say incompetent. They have brought us 2 championships, improved our park, and at the same time. But they're about to offer Ryan Madison a deal that's just $1 million less per year than what Papelbon got. Did I think Papelbon was worth the money he